Okay, welcome to the final Outlast Season 1 recap show. What a journey it has been, as Jen and I are here to recap the finale episode of Outlast. We're kind of going to do it a chunk at a time. We'll give awards for each phase, each round, um, and we'll talk through everything that happens, give behind the scenes info as usual. And then I actually haven't decided yet if the player interviews will be in this episode, like this recording, or in a separate one. I'm off the cuff thinking I just put them in a separate one. Otherwise, this is going to be like a 3 hour long
Mhm.
recording. So, because I've got 5 player exit interviews to do. So, anyway, Jen, hello.
Hello.
We are here on Monday morning. So, this is um, the day that the finale goes live on YouTube. We just watched the finale 2 nights ago with cast and crew and a select number of elite fans who decided to come watch it with us. Thank you to anybody who is listening that was there. Had a great time watching the finale together. And it's all. I usually say this earlier, but of course, spoilers for the episode here. Spoilers for the whole episode. We will try and break it down chunk by chunk, but naturally, it's one episode, so we'll mention things that happen later, most likely. Um, okay, let's start with the first part of this, which is round 12. I think that's right. This may be a little clunkier than usual because I'm gonna be fiddling with the computer to remind us what happened because it's a big episode. But yeah, this is round 12, in which America's favorite Outlast contestant, Sky, finally has her luck run out and is eliminated once and for all. What? It's impossible to say enough about Sky and what she brought to the table here. I don't know. Do you want to start with talking about her game and you know her contribution to Outlast?
Yeah, I think as a reminder, she was a late add
Right.
to the group and how essential she was
Yeah.
to just the entire show. And I think, yeah, like from moment she got voted out, she's like, "You're gonna be bored,"
Mm-hmm.
and I think not that we would have been bored, if Sky hadn't been in the episode at all, but it definitely would have changed a lot of the dynamics.
Yeah.
The main duo of Elizabeth and Abby wouldn't have had this kind of antagonist on the other
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
side.
Foil. Yeah.
Wouldn't have had the great dynamic with Adam. Who knows how Adam's game would have gone without
Right.
Sky? Would
Right.
have been better, would have been worse. I don't know. But overall, I mean, just really incredible. And I think, she comes in with probably, bottom five, bottom three of people who don't know Survivor
Yeah.
as well. But as we've said in other times, she's a smart girl. She
Yep.
knows how to play games. And she really just embraced that, which I think is what ultimately, like thinking about doing this again, we hope to have other players like Sky
Right.
who maybe aren't the survivor know it all,
Mm-hmm.
where that does have a spot,
Mm-hmm.
but we just have people who are good at games
Yeah.
and are having a good time.
Totally. Yeah. I have said it a handful of times on this show, I'm sure, but like one of my favorite stories of this whole season is that like where Sky goes from not knowing what's going on, and I think what is salient about it is she takes a thing that she's doesn't know well, is kind of struggling to put together, and she works hard at it and applies her brain to the situation and ends up being a really strong player strategically, even because she's applied herself to trying to get better. I think if a lot of us were to look in the mirror and imagine ourselves in that situation, we would, and I'm not even excluding myself. Sometimes I do this. We would find a thing that we're struggling with that other people are better than us at least initially, and we say like, all right, whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like doing things that I'm not good at.
Right.
So I
I'm just
tend,
really impressed by it. Like I'm
yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
impressed by it because yeah, I think that's a really hard thing to do. So, and not to mention she's so good on camera. She's so great at talking. Like the two idols both played successfully. The all of it, Sky is the star of the show for a huge portion of this game, and so um yeah, great stuff all around.
I do really love her attempt in this episode to play a bead.
Right, right.
But again, I just think that shows her fight and her,
Mm-hmm.
willingness to get to the end. And I think, you know, ultimately, in my mind, like, her and Elizabeth getting to this point, and, it's Sky getting voted out, and then it's Elizabeth getting voted out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they just couldn't handle the threat level.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you?
Right. Right.
Like, this, I think, is just the question
It's
of the game.
it's Survivor, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I think you've said before, like, I'm always like, it's the best players who get voted out at 5, at
Mm-hmm.
4. And you're like, well, they're not the best player if they don't win.
Yeah.
But it's just, how do you?
Right. It's the challenge of it for sure. It's like from a pure like strategic or social strategic or being in control of the game standpoint. Yeah, a lot of those players go out in these spots. And you look at across the history of Survivor, the players that win having had that reputation are pretty rare,
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually it's due to either like reading the jury and the remaining players exceptionally well. Like I always think of like Kagayan Tony, like
Mm-hmm.
he put all his money on Wu taking him to the end,
Mm-hmm.
and he was right. Like he should have been out. It would have been final three at that point. Um, or yeah, they know like I'm not being perceived as threatening as I am, or they've lined up just the right number of shields, right? I think that,
Or they win an immunity. They win
or they went out,
immunity.
or they went
Yeah.
out. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So like, yeah, I think, um, yeah, I think we'll talk about it next round. But Elizabeth in particular, like if she had found a way to keep Sky in one more round, maybe that gives her a better shot to make it to final three because the target's on Sky.
Yeah.
Um, but who knows? Okay, what do you want to talk about in particular in this part of the episode, the final five of
Yeah.
it all?
I think it starts off, with Abby having an emotional moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just kind of the game catching up to her at that point,
Yeah.
right? Where she just kind of is maybe at a loss of, okay, like, this is how I see the game,
Yep.
and I don't know what else to say. And I think then, it's this real moment that, she comes back and later and says, like, that was real emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the right thing to do? I don't know, is the only thing to do,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so, but you can just see, like, she's sitting on the ground. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's deflated. She's having a tough time. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, she gets back to camp and is basically like off the rip, like, all right, I can't do this in secret or behind people's backs. Like, I think the only way forward is to vote out Sky and Elizabeth in some order. That's the
mm-hmm.
only way. That's my agenda here, and that's kind of been her agenda for a few rounds. But this is her kind of coming out and saying it, and yeah, she says, I think like Sam will respect that, which is, I think, a fair read given that Sam's played a pretty honest, upfront game. Um, and yeah, like who knows how much it impacts what's to come, but yeah, I think I understand it, like personally, not wanting to blindside your biggest ally, but you know, do something like this. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and then Sky kind of uses that to be like, wasn't that terrible,
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, that you're
Mm-hmm.
number one?
Yeah,
Like,
it's smart,
that,
man. It's smart.
yeah.
Yeah,
And she
it
just
didn't work, but it's smart.
keeps trying to kind of push that narrative of like, at Tribal, of
Mm-hmm.
kind of doxing Abby,
Yeah,
you know.
I really do think like Elizabeth, and I think she's said this. This was probably her idea, you know, knowing her. But like, I think what she could have done here was like somehow, because Sam votes for Abby, right? Like whether or not
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth knew that was going to happen or not. I think Elizabeth should have gotten with Sky and Sam, voted for Abby,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know Elizabeth is st- still a target at 4, um, but there's also another big target there, right? Like,
Right. Where
and
their
there
games
may
are
have been a.
differentiated so much more that it's not just Abby and Elizabeth.
Mhm.
Elizabeth's the scarier target.
And it also not that Elizabeth necessarily needed more feathers in her cap for a final tribal, but like also then have the narrative of like, yeah, Abby said she was gunning for me and I got the jump on her.
Mm-hmm.
Like would have been cool. Would have been cool, but also hard to you know argue too much against. Yeah, seeing Sky as like a legitimate threat to win. Here you've got a shot at her. Like, go ahead and take it. Definitely a justifiable play, but I think probably for Elizabeth and for nobody else. If she could have spun that, would have been a really huge late game move here. Um, so there is an idol in play. Final Five's the last time you can play idols, and there is one in play. Nobody finds it. We hit it at camp. There's like these reeds sort of by the water that I tucked it in there, and I didn't get the sense that really anybody was looking super hard, but there was one there,
Yeah.
and had that been found, that also really would have changed the shape of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time, well, obviously the first time because every other idol is played, and that's why we had to replant one. But like, I think the first time that we planted an idol that it wasn't found like kind of immediately,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, besides Green's first hidden in plain sight
But
idol.
Jake did find it. He
Yeah,
just didn't.
yeah,
He just
yeah.
didn't close. So I don't know. That's something. We can talk about the challenge here. This is a puzzle, like a Survivor tree puzzle replica. I think there's like an audible groan from everybody but Elizabeth when I say that it's a puzzle. And she really does just kind of obliterate the opposition in this one. She's great at puzzles. Nobody else here apparently really is because yeah, nobody's really close. Like people start to maybe get some momentum, but she's like she could probably solve it twice before anybody
Mm-hmm.
solved it once, right?
And
So
this is a really, really hard
it
puzzle.
is really
Like
hard.
it yeah, we tried it. It's really hard.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without looking at the box eventually.
Yeah. Like I got like maybe 3 or 4, but it was really tough.
Yep. So Elizabeth wins her third individual immunity, which is the most of anyone. I think anybody would have been surprised by that. I think she would too. Did not. Yeah, I think she said that she didn't really have immunity threat on her bingo card of what her game would be, but it is. And two of them are heavy puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
but one of them is just the endurance challenge from the split, the double tribal pre-merge. So yeah, Elizabeth proves to be a really strong immunity competitor here. Yeah, not much else to say about this.
I did really enjoy. I don't know if it was captured. Like I feel like captured super well, but I think this was like a really fun challenge
Mm-hmm.
of, they're in the tribal council area.
Yeah, I agree.
There's some woods. There's a lot of, and these bags are placed throughout that area. They have to go and run and find it and gather them and then do the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think it's like what you said before, where you have their heart rates get really high and then you
Yeah.
need to bring it down and focus.
Yeah.
And, at this point in production, we have people on cameras who have never been on cameras. Right. We have, mics not connected to the right spot. Like we're
it's kind of a cluster.
Yeah. And so, could it have been shot a little bit better? I think so, to kind of capture how fun I think this was and set up well.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, love to see Elizabeth kind of clutch this because, yeah, I was so curious what was going to happen at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been really interesting had she lost. Is she the one on the table, or is it still Sky? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, going back to that thought regarding like keeping Sky around, like, yeah, Elizabeth with immunity here, you'd think that would even free her up to do something kind of crazy like that, knowing that, okay, I'm not an option right now. Yeah. Yeah, and so the, deliberation here is pretty cut and dry. I think the interesting stuff is between Sam and Sky here, where, like we said, Sam votes for Abby as kind of a throwaway, not a throwaway vote, but a insurance policy vote, in case Sky does pull something out. He guarantees that by voting with her, it's not going to be like a 1-1 split on him or something like that. And then, yeah, there's this conversation they have where call back all the way to episode 3, where the players on Last Chance Island have a they can make an active player do a thing at a challenge, and Sam was picked. It was by Allie, so he's like, maybe that was Sky, and they're talking about it, but it does prompt to Sky oh, that's why I had to find the bead or whatever, or something to that effect, and it reminds her to look for the bead behind the skull in this other camp, which is still there. Unfortunately,
we didn't move it.
Well, I think it's fine. The thing is that it's just it is just a bead unless you have 2/3 of a Last Chance Island idol to attach it to, and I think maybe that speaks to maybe her lack of familiarity with the game, but also, again, like you were saying, it's a foothold and she's gonna try and use it. So I think that's the only moment of suspense is oh, did she actually find something?
I love how you say this is not.
You got to do it. Yeah, you got to build the suspense.
You can hear everybody exhale, laugh.
The place would have blown up if she had found yet another idol.
Adam was already having a mental breakdown as she was presenting this third idol.
And, I think I remember feeling in the moment, it's oh, did I, not do a good job of explaining or, misleading, somebody into playing a thing incorrectly? I just, I don't feel that way anymore. I think it's just a throwing something at the wall sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like we said, Sam and Sky vote for Abby. Everybody else votes for Sky. 3-2 vote. And Sky is the first casualty of finale night. Anything else before we give our awards for this round?
I don't think so.
Worth mentioning that Sky does name this episode as well. We held kind of a poll at Live Finale for the title of the episode, and she coins it during this part of the episode. Reverse psychology can be a beautiful thing. It's a little long-winded, but it is a great line. Okay, who gets your Gertie Award for this round?
Yeah, this is tough. Fighting between Sky and Elizabeth, even though Sky gets voted out.
Sure.
Just one last award for giving it her all. But I think ultimately I do land with Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't really feel like I need to explain that much. I think at this point too in real life, like as it's happening, I'm just like couldn't believe it because it's like at this point I feel like every tribal since several ago, it just felt like okay, Elizabeth's gonna get out this time.
Yeah.
Okay, and her continuing to survive and then have this immunity win, I think again was like such a surprise
Yeah.
to everyone that, you know, she has the most while also being like, yeah, of course she's
Yeah.
a great puzzler, she's smart,
Totally.
she's motivated, so
Yeah, great important immunity win. Like, she gets out her target. She gets her group of four that she wanted to for. Now, was that the right group to want at four? You know, time we will never know. But yeah, I'm actually gonna give mine to somebody that we really haven't talked about, and that's Dan. And it's not just a pity number. Dan is dead set for rounds and rounds and rounds of like, don't do something crazy. We just got to get our 4 to 4. And here was like, and he's done it. You know, here we are at 4, and it's this 4 that he wanted to get there. He's voted for Sky for like 5 rounds in a row, and this time he gets it right. And so, yeah, there were other people, of course, who were like Abby's also pushing to get out Sky. Like Elizabeth's obviously on board, but this has been kind of Dan's prerogative for a while, and he finally gets his white whale. He gets the cockroach. This time, the cockroach does finally die. So there's a Gertie Award for our good buddy Dan. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll jump right back into the next part of the episode. Okay, and we're back with part 2 of the finale, or round 13, whatever suits your fancy. Cool. So this is final 4, and the final elimination before final tribal. Yeah, why don't you start, Jen? What's your biggest moment from this one?
yeah, I think I was really excited to see fire making. And props to Casey for figuring out a setup with the string and
Yeah, did a good job.
you know, setting it all up. So I think overall it went really well.
I think fire making was my favorite challenge this whole time. Like it was the most I felt like we were on Survivor the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was proud we didn't like start a forest fire. I was, you know, proud that somebody got it without matches.
Totally. That was a concern of mine is like there's a non-zero chance that just nobody can do this, and then we're kind of, you know, up a creek.
Yeah. Can I share the small story about matches and my adventure to
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
So at a certain point we realized, okay, we may need to have matches in case they can't get this going. So I'm searching the basement. I'm calling my parents, like, where are matches? We apparently don't have any in the cabin. So
Which is crazy.
I think is crazy. I'm like,
given the whole vibe of the place.
yeah. And then, so I go into town, like, to the Dollar General to find matches. I'm running all over the store trying to find it. I'm taking Sarah's car, and she's like, I've never let anyone drive this car before. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then they're out of matches at the Dollar General, or I can't find them. So I find this lady who's wearing an apron, and I'm like, hey, do we have matches here in this store? And she's like, I don't work here. But
why are you wearing an apron?
Yeah, but I do own the antique store across the street, and we have matchbooks that you can have. Just tell my husband that I told you could have matchbooks. So I'm like, great, thank you so much. So I drive across the street to the antique store. I walk in and I'm like, "Hi, do you own this place?" He's like, "Yes." I said, "Okay, so I met your wife at the Dollar General. I need matches. She said I could have them. I need like 3 or 4 books. So these are antique matches. And so we have to test them. So I'm sitting there in this store striking these matches to see what works. We go through
So
like
funny.
5 to 6 packs, finally get a few. I drive back and you immediately say to me, "Oh yeah, we don't need these."
Did it already happen?
No, but you were like, I don't think we need these." And I was like, "Okay."
But we could have. We could have needed them.
Or actually
Especially
I
if
think what
this vote
happened was
goes
you
to a
said
tie.
I only brought 3 back and you were like, we needed 4.
Well, I didn't know your whole odyssey to find these matches, so
It's fine. So anyways, we didn't need the matches. Great
yeah.
job, Sam, on making fire
Right.
work.
Right.
I think he shared this in the episode, right?
Yeah.
He driving up realized maybe I should look up how to start fire and watched a quick video, and that really helped. So shout out to whatever
YouTuber he watched a fire making video from.
Yeah,
gets
exactly.
a share of the win. Yeah.
It was really hard to watch like in person. Watching as I'm like rooting for Elizabeth and rooting for Abby to like and just seeing like they're getting nowhere and
Sure.
just how like frustrating it is.
Yeah, it gotta be very frustrating.
And you're just kind of like willing. You just want to like when you're in real life, you're like wanting to shout at them like, put it closer, like hold it to the ground,
do something
different. Yeah, but you're also like in that scenario. There is a lot to say about like consistently striking it and so
yeah,
it's just so much pressure.
Advice for future Outlast players in a challenge, like a skills challenge like this, not just fire making, but if it's like a slingshot or throwing a ball or any like skill thing, is I think the faster and more frantically you go, like the worse it like slow is smooth. Remember that. Like take a minute. Like if you take an extra 2 seconds to catch your breath and then throw the ball and it's more accurate, those 2 seconds are worth it than if you like ran back and then just whiffed the whole thing and have to run and go get it again. So not that necessarily was what happened here, but a thing that I consider sometimes when watching either Survivor or this. Like if it was me, like maybe it would frustrate people if I'm like not immediately throwing it when I get there, but I would like set my feet, like anyway.
I think something different from watching it in real time. I don't remember feeling like Sam blocking the wind was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Whereas like watching it with everyone, it was just kind of this like
it was just kind of laying on the ground.
Yeah, like almost catching himself on fire.
I was surprised that it took so much for the twine that we used to burn through. I thought like that was gonna burn through immediately based on like I don't know, it was very dry, very like wispy. But I don't know, I guess twine has a better integrity than like if we just used, I don't know, like cloth string or something, or like really light string. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
I think too, like fine. Didn't realize forgot how close Dan was with.
He got
very close.
He got very close. Like there was a world there, and I was imagining it in real time. Again, you see this on Survivor a lot of times, where the first person to get fire often isn't the one who wins. Like they get it, it's big, but it's like off kilter, or it flames out, and then the second person gets like a more stable fire. And yeah, Dan built his up really well. Like he was really close. Yeah, fire making was great. Really fun to see. I think at the beginning of the episode here, like, we'll just kind of go through it now, but there's this talk, which I included in the episode because I thought it was fun. We're talking. It felt like a real Survivor, kind of like Final 4, Final 3 moment where they're like, wow, I can't believe we just met 2 days ago. Like, it's cool how we didn't know each other going into this, and here we are. Yeah, this group of 4 that has, started playing the game together, were separated, came back, survived through some dire straits, came back together, and really ran the merge portion of the game from a minority position. Like, I think this is often lost, and people are even frustrated, players who lost to these folks, of like, they didn't even turn on each other, like they didn't make a move. But remember, at the merge, it was like 6 orange to 4 green or whatever, or maybe it was it 11? I don't know. I don't know, because Anna was there too.
I still count Anna as green,
Yeah.
or as orange,
Well, she was, yeah.
because she
But
flipped over to orange.
anyway, the numbers were such that they didn't have like a majority going into this part of the game and just pagong everybody, right? Like, they worked from a minority position to exploit the vulnerabilities
Yeah, the
of the
cracks.
majority group, and then got to a point where they did have a majority, and then they did get to kind of run it to the end. But it didn't start that way, and I think that that's worth remembering, and it's worth honoring and giving kudos for, because that's like a really hard position to be in, and they played it really well. And so the big green machine didn't start that way, right? Like, they lost the first two challenges. Even after an orange was eliminated, the orange came back in. The next player eliminated was green. They're in a minority situation in both split tribes, right? Like, it could have been a decimation, but instead it was reversed, right? By the 4 of these players. So,
And
again,
then,
really, really special gameplay.
as far as, going into this tribal, Dan speaks to this, but I can't remember if it was said before this. Like, was it just known to them that if there was a tie at 4, it would be fire making as well?
Yeah, it's in the rules.
Okay, yeah. That was something in real life that all of us were kind of dreading.
I know.
The thought of is like doing that
Doing it all over
again.
again.
And at this point, I think we're behind schedule. And, it's the last day, running pretty ragged.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also committed to it. So we're like,
Of course,
want to do what we need to do, but also simultaneously being like, please don't be another tie vote.
Yeah. Yeah, Final Four tie vote goes straight to fire making, which is, how it happens in Survivor too. I think, a thing I didn't consider at the time, like maybe making the actual immunity challenge also fire making. At the same time, there could be a tiebreaker fire making. Maybe not the best decision. So back at camp, pretty quickly, like, Sam, I think winning this immunity, like, is so critical for Sam and ultimately his win,
Yeah.
because it allows him to take a controlling role here at Final Four, and it also, it gives him a head full of steam coming in to Final Tribal. It projects confidence, and it lets him, like, start talking about his win now, instead of what it forces everybody else to do is to talk about why they're not going to win. And that's, I think Final Four is such a hugely important immunity for that reason. Even if you're not a vote target, it's like it sets the stage for Final Tribal in, like, a really important way. And so, Sam is assuming, like, a leadership role in the voting here that you rarely see from him, right? And he's kind of like directing every conversation at the beach you see happening. Like, he's telling Dan, I'm keeping Dan. He's telling Elizabeth and Abby, like, yep, we'll choose between the two of you, right? And so, yeah, I think winning this immunity puts him in that spot, which sets him up, in a really great way. And there's not a whole lot of suspense here. I think the only suspense is if Dan's going to force a tie, just kind of for shits and giggles. Which, again, like you said, at the time, I'm like, please don't do this. Like, I don't want to. but again, it would have, it could have been cool. It would have just been, from a logistical standpoint, a frustrating thing to experience. So, yeah, ultimately, everybody here votes for Elizabeth. Elizabeth votes for Abby. Yeah, Sam tells Dan, like, yeah, you're not really being considered. And I think, Dan's excited for that. He does kind of have that moment of reflection, I think, where he's like, maybe that doesn't bode super well for me and my chances at Final Tribal to be kind of taken along.
But also, you're like, hey, I'm gonna be at Final Tribal.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
so like,
Yeah, and there's nothing he can do to, it's not like he's going to be like, no, don't take me or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
um, and then, yeah, at Tribal Council, I think the most enjoyable thing here is this, like, you see both Elizabeth and Abby's voting confessionals, and that, Elizabeth is a little bit more hurt, I think. Maybe she sees the writing on the wall, but saying, like, maybe I should have picked a different number two, Abby basically says, if I get voted out instead, you should win. So it's a good conclusion to this pair that have, really been in lockstep the entire game, knowing that for a while now they probably would have to turn on each other, and it's a fitting, I think, conclusion to the end of their story. And then Elizabeth, of course, robbed Goddess here at the Final Four spot. Yeah, classic Survivor tale of the, like you said, kind of the most commanding player being the last one voted out before the vote. You can all the way back to Rob Sesternino in Amazon, right? It's like, and a rich history of similar games.
Suri.
Right, Surrey and Micronesia. Yeah, so many. Okay, who gets your award for this portion of the episode, Jen?
I don't know if this makes sense, but I think it feels weird to vote Elizabeth because she gets out.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, like, I mean, I'm obviously, it's been obvious, like, this whole season while it was happening, while I'm watching, like, rooting for Elizabeth and Abby. And, at this point, I did think Abby's gonna win it. And, like, she did it. Like, it was, like, either one of them. Abby did it. Abby's gonna get there and she's gonna win. And was just really proud of both of them. So, I think this one goes to Abby.
Okay. Jen gives her Gertchie to Abby. Mine's Sam. It's actually pretty easy for me this round. Winning the immunity here at 4 is so crucial, like I was saying. He gets to kind of dictate the move here. Gets his way, which is, I think, everybody else's preference too. But it's seen as a move that he's leading because he has the confidence to go in with the idol or the individual immunity, and again, setting up himself well for Final Tribal. I think this is Sam has a few really important rounds, but I think winning immunity here is one of the biggest.
I think it's both episodes
of
where
his
he
game.
Wins immunity is huge for him.
Yeah. Okay, so yet again, we'll take a little breather here, and then we will talk about Final Tribal. All right, and we're on to Final Tribal now, and the lead up to it. Yeah, I was really thrilled with how Final Tribal went. I think the jury asked really good questions. I think that it was far from a sure thing what was going to happen at Final Tribal, as evidenced by the questions and by what the jury was saying leading up to it in their interviews. And then in, classic Outlast Season 1 fashion, it was a tight vote, came down to just one. And, to not bury the lead, Sam wins. Sam's the winner of Outlast. Abby was just one vote shy. Really compelling, I think, thrilling conclusion. I was like trying my best to look around at the live finale because there were, a decent number of fans there that didn't know how things were going to end. Trying to like watch some reactions as it was like, a close back and forth vote, and there were some like, some tense jaw on the floor type faces, which was cool. I always have such a hard time gauging like what reaction is from people who weren't there, because almost everybody I talked to about the show was there. They were a player or they were on the crew. And so yeah, I'm always interested in hearing and seeing how people who are watching it without knowing the outcome are viewing things, and if there is like suspense, if the stories are like narratively satisfying, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, yeah, a good final tribal, and Sam's the winner of Outlast.
Woo!
Woo. Any particular moments, questions, answers, stories for you in this final tribal round that were most compelling?
I do like that you included confessionals from the jury. I think it's kind of a fun way to show them again, where their head's at,
Mm-hmm.
what they're thinking going into Final Tribal, then getting a look at where each of the final three are at.
Yeah.
I think, again, it just kind of sets it up well and kind of reminds everybody about each of the jurors before they get up there, and you're like, whoa, where is all this coming from?
Yeah.
You're not as, maybe thrown off, or it's like a nice little reminder.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's nice for them to see themselves again
Sure.
on screen, and just kind of included them a little bit more.
Yeah. It is important, I think, to set the stage that way, and because otherwise it may be, you may have no idea how things are going to go or what people are measuring. And so this way you get the sense of like, okay, this is what people are looking to hear. This is maybe who has a leg up, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I like it that Survivor started doing this, so it creates less kind of like confusion or speculation when the final vote is read, or at least going into it. So, yeah, I thought people were insightful. I do think everybody voted like with their brain in their heart and not with like, well, I don't know, not flippantly, right? They all took it seriously, which I did stress throughout the weekend. They thought independently, I think, as evidenced by a split 4-3 conclusion. So yeah, proud of the jury for not giving in to groupthink or being afraid of voting for somebody that everybody else didn't vote for.
Yeah, and I think in real time too, like this was hard for them because Elizabeth gets voted out, and then there's a new jury member, and then we have to turn around and do final tribal, but give enough time for all of these confessionals, while also time for them to kind of discuss and get their questions in order.
Yeah.
And so I just remember there's this being this kind of moment of like, okay, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And jury members, because they're taking it seriously, we're like, no, we need a minute.
Yeah.
And then just getting to a point where we're like, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it in the moment, as much as I wanted to kind of get it wrapped up, that they were taking it seriously and working on putting together a good finale with the questions that they thoughtfully put together.
Yeah.
Which I think makes it fun. Like that, they're bringing into it their personalities and, some of their, I don't know hostility is not the right
Yeah,
word,
yeah,
but
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
their
like
own personal experience of these players. Yeah.
yeah, and I think, Dan catches a lot of heat
Hmm.
in Final Tribal.
He doesn't. He catches an amount of heat, which is more than either of the other two do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yes.
Yeah, and I think yeah, it's just I really love and I don't know, jumping ahead to Final Tribal, just jumping into it like
Hmm.
love Hannah, we haven't seen her and
Yep.
be able to speak in a very long time,
Yep.
and yeah, she spent the least amount of time with all of them, and
Right.
she hasn't her vote isn't decided yet, and I think
Yep.
that's like a really powerful TV moment,
Yep.
and really loved how that played out.
Yeah, it like gives weight to final tribal council, which a lot of times, at least in Survivor, kind of feels like a formality.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like, I've never really thought about it in these terms before, but there's kind of like three factors or like three phases for a jury voting for final tribal, right? There's like the game you played and your interactions with and experience of the players in the game. There's the time that you're on the jury, in which you're comparing notes with the other jurors, you're seeing what you can see from the bench. And then there's final tribal, where the players are actually talking and you're answering their questions or you're asking them questions. And it feels like that third part of final tribal is not as important in a jury member making a decision than the first two,
Mm-hmm.
which is fair, because it's such a small moment in comparison to those other two times. But yeah, you want final tribal to mean something, and you want players to be able to win or lose votes at final tribal. And I do think in a game like Outlast that moves faster, the potential for that is higher, because there is less, you're spending a day and a half with somebody, or in Hannah's case, like a few hours,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get final tribal versus I've spent 20 days with this person. Like what they tell me at final tribal is not really going to affect how I think about them.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. I think that, yeah, like you were saying, having an impactful final tribal makes it an exciting conclusion. Knowing that it's a tight vote, you know, means that things are swayed. Like one vote makes a difference. And I think pretty explicitly, at least two votes were either changed or were decisions were made at final tribal. Like I think it was surprising to me hearing Elizabeth say before final tribal that she was pretty set on Sam,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how closely Abby and her worked together. And then especially given her question, which was kind of a stump opportunity for Abby to say, like, just go for it here. Like, tell them why you should win. Why the reason that you're not gonna win right now is because people just view you as my second fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us why you're not. But she, yeah, went into final tribal thinking she would vote for Sam, and she votes for Abby. So that's one flipped vote. Hannah's obviously undecided. She ends up voting for Sam. So there's a vote one for Sam. I think I'm interested. I don't think I ever talked to Isaac about this, but I wonder if how up in the air Isaac's vote was. He feels like the other one whose vote may have been available, because I think the other ones were fairly determined. I think maybe Sky's was potentially available. Sky votes for Abby. But it feels like, I think Adam knows he's going to vote for Abby. I think Ty knows he's going to vote for Sam. I think
Anna.
Anna knows she's going to vote for Sam. And so there's at minimum 2 and at maximum 4, votes that are available to be won here at Final Tribal, right? And I think that's exciting, at least in retrospect. Yeah, I think what I just really want to commend Sam on his Final Tribal performance, because I do think, like, obviously he sways at least one vote that was up in the air. If Abby answers Hannah's question differently, or he answers it differently, then he loses that vote and he loses the game. Obviously, Abby did enough to win Elizabeth's vote away from him, but I don't think that was Sam's fault. I think Abby said what Elizabeth needed to hear, which was the keeping things a secret from her. I think she like respected and didn't know about and gave her enough. But I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here, but I really do think Sam's presentation here at Final Tribal was really skilled. I think it's what ultimately put him over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the approach that Sam had, again, maybe something to learn here for future players, is like Sam was confident, he was direct, he answered the question, he advocated for himself, and he didn't ramble or come off as defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like he came off as, yeah, as confident, but not pleading, right? I'm not saying that other players did, but like he wasn't like, oh, please vote for me, or like, you didn't see these things. He was like, yeah, this is what I did. Like, and if that's a good enough reason to you, then vote for me for that reason.
It's kind of his whole game.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Like, if you want to keep me,
And it
keep
goes
me.
over well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes over well. Like, I think he says a couple times, and I think this is his like winning answer. If I was skilled or had enough time, it would be the moment in the episode where the music swells and the strings come in. But it's when Sam's like, I put the majority of you over there are there because of me. Like I put the majority of you over there.
Yeah, I think in real time when he said that, I kind of my I don't know, kind of sunk it. It's just it did really
It was a
feel
great
very
answer.
powerful.
Great answers. Yep.
And I think you could kind of feel the shift.
Yeah, and it was something that, again, I think Abby did a fine job at Final Tribal, but it was something that she didn't do, was give that kind of direct, pointed
Yeah.
sort of response. It was more like a defense, right? She more was defending herself
Yeah.
rather than going on the attack, right?
Which, and I think too, I do want to say, like, yeah, take this, future players as like a way to handle tribal, but I also think there's a real reality of like so much of Sam's game can only be done as well as it was because it's Sam. Because he's so likable.
Absolutely.
And I think like there's a way to do what Sam did at tribal and it not land.
For sure.
It's all about personality and the relationships and just being as likable as he is.
Yeah, totally right.
That I think, yes, there is so much to being confident and stating your game as it is, but there's a way to do that a tiny bit wrong.
Yeah.
And it comes off the worst
like
way.
Arrogant or...
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like, even coming with the necklace around his neck, like, you're just like, oh, Sam, how cute.
Sure.
Whereas like somebody else coming with their immunity win from last episode,
Yep.
That comes off completely wrong.
Absolutely.
Or just that, there's an answer he gives and it's so short.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, different person, different personality, that's not respected.
Yeah.
But I think it's who he is, how he played his game and built the relationships up throughout the entire season.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and where I was, I have a lot more respect for Sam's game watching it through on this side of things. Whereas like in person, I'm not seeing confessionals. I'm not seeing camp. I'm seeing bits and pieces. I come in, with a preference for Abby and Elizabeth. And so I'm rooting so hard for them.
Yeah.
That like, to me, getting to this point, I'm like, what did you do, Sam? And it's like, but seeing back all of these tiny conversations that he had where he was strategic and or his social ability to come up to somebody and say, hey, I'm voting against you, but that's still with you somehow.
Yeah.
It is insane jury management in the long haul that, again, as we've said before, maybe doesn't work for a majority of people, but really worked for Sam.
Yeah, the gap between what Sam is sharing with Confessional and here at Final Tribal, the gap between that and what other players in the game at the moment is seeing is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is like a sign of a good player, that they're not giving up too much. Of course, like you were saying, the danger zone here is that, and this is kind of the trap that Dan fell into, is that the secret things you're doing, or the behind the scenes things you're doing, are so behind the scenes that you get to final tribal, and when you're like, yeah, I did this and this, they're like, no, you didn't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whether or
Mm-hmm.
not it's true, they don't believe it.
Right.
And I think, yeah, again, not to like bury, you know, we should talk about Dan, because I think that is the trap that he fell into. Because Dan has an up and down game. Certainly, he has like a number of, he's voting incorrectly, a number of times, like just statistically more so than the other players left in the game at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he is thinking strategically. He is like pushing his agenda, but his perception, whether due to any number of things, I honestly do think that all the way back in episode 2,
Yep.
when he says the low integrity thing, it kind of poisons the well against him.
Yep.
Like, first impressions are so important, and he kind of makes half of the game, half of the players in the game view him as an antagonist there,
Which
and
is
like,
the majority of the jury.
yeah,
Like,
and that's tough. It's tough to come back from. And that's why I included it in the like, big long recap at the beginning of the show, is because I do think for Dan, like, unfortunately, that puts him in a certain light that is tough to bounce back from in a short game. Like, in Survivor, when you're out there for 30 days, people forget about that, or they get over it, but it's harder to do in like a day and a half.
well, and I think too, like, I haven't thought about this until now, or I don't know, it's a today new thought, but that there's that, and then he cements it by being such a loyalty strong player that then they don't see him as a possibility to work with,
Sure.
or it's just again like that clashing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there isn't any decent rapport built up, or allegiance to him, that initial interaction just keeps getting cemented throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah. So yeah, Sam wins this 4-3, 4 votes to 3. Abby gets votes from Elizabeth, Sky, and Adam. Sam gets votes from Isaac, Ty, Anna, and Hannah. Yeah, it's like interesting contingents, like, obviously Sky is pretty antagonistic towards Abby most of the time, but turns out she respects the game enough to vote for her. Like, Adam, same sort of deal, maybe not as like personally confrontational, but they were at odds with each other in the game. Elizabeth was won over to her. So it is these three that kind of like were victims of Abby to some degree, that see her as the one of these three who were responsible for their elimination. And the ones that vote for Sam are more so, maybe they weren't I guess Hannah was personally victimized by Sam.
I think though what we've come back on is that the split swap is the people who vote for Abby minus Isaac are the people who are on the swap tribe.
Yep.
And then the people who are on the swap tribe with Sam vote for Sam in final trial. So it's like the amount of time that you spend together, I think plays into final game.
Yeah.
And that's where I think where the curiosity came from with Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Isaac was in that position with the split where
Isaac was really victimized by Abby.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, that wasn't going to get his vote potentially, but curious about, where he did land, or what was going on in his head. I think I'm super curious about, because I know he really respects the game, and wasn't just going to vote for the person he spent time with, So
Yeah, you alluded to this. I'll share some of these stats. The important, I think, impactful breakdown of final tribal votes, to say explicitly what you just said, is that the jury members who were on a split tribe with a player in the final three, or Abby and Sam specifically, voted for that player 6 out of 7 times, right? So every person voted for the player on their split tribe except for Isaac. Isaac was on split orange, voted for Sam, who was on split green. Everybody else voted for the player on their split tribe, right? And I think that, like, it makes sense when you look at that part of the game. That was maybe the most kind of like strategically big volatile part of the game, right? All of those votes there, David and then Cody on the split green tribe, and then Anna and the three-way tie vote on Emily on the orange tribe, were like big votes, like
Mm-hmm.
big impactful tough votes. And seeing them play in that part, I think it makes sense that they value their games higher because they saw up close and personal how they navigated those votes. I'll name some other stats here. I want to talk about Sky, um, because her game was truly singular. Sky received 22 votes. She blocked 8 votes with an idol. 8 blocked votes would be tied for 6th all time in actual Survivor. The 22 votes against would be the most votes ever received in any single season of Survivor, which is crazy.
It's nuts.
Crazy. And then also Skyforce voted together at every tribal, including Final Tribal. No other pair can say that, which I think is funny. Abby voted correctly the most times with 9. I think speaks to her social, strategic savviness and connectedness. She also just did go to tribal council a lot of times. Sam and Elizabeth were right behind her with 8 times. The only times Elizabeth voted wrong, other than in her elimination, were when she voted for Sky and Sky played an idol, which would have been correct if she didn't have an idol. So Elizabeth had a very, very clean voting record. Isaac only had 1 vote against all season. Poor guy. Dan and Sam made it all the way to finals, only receiving 2 votes each. And Sam's was all the way back in the Cody vote, like in episode 3 or 4. So he hadn't received votes in a long time. Elizabeth won 3 individual immunities. Like we said, that led the season. Ty was immune the most times. He was immune 6 times, split between 4 group and 2 individual immunities. He only went to tribal council without immunity 5 times, which is also kind of crazy. He made it all the way to day 3 and could only have been voted for 5 times. I think Abby, I failed to put this in my notes, I think Abby had the most times that she was immune, or was not immune.
And she didn't have any votes.
She got votes here towards the end of the game,
Yeah.
but she didn't for a while. Yeah, I think she was only immune the 2 times that Green won immunity, and she was on the group that won immunity in the final, what was that, final 8 vote.
I do want to say,
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, I'm going to ramble for a second, but
Sure.
in real time, this final tribal just felt so emotional to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much of that was just the fact that it was a really long, hard weekend
Mm-hmm.
and really rewarding at the
Yeah.
same time. And I think it was that, really good thing coming to an end.
Yeah.
Feeling of like the end of summer camp and
Right,
like things
right.
that, or, just these like rare moments in life where you get to do something really incredible and know that even if you get to do the same thing again, it's never going to be the same.
For sure. Yeah.
And like how rare to have this group of people together, of strangers, mostly, don't know each other, and this is the final moments of that
Yep.
before it's breakdown, tear down, it's over,
Yeah.
and you go back to working the next
Right.
day,
Right.
and I think you said it in the weekend, like, I don't know how I'm gonna go back to my 9 to 5 after this.
Yeah.
And I think it just, I felt very emotional, I think, because I went in, just wanting to be a supportive partner,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wanted, you know, to support you in this dream of doing this. And I think a lot of it was, yeah, I wanted to do it, but it's not my dream,
Sure.
right? And so, but I think in real time experiencing like the highs of how fun and how incredible it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think too, I was just like, so how much of that played into my emotions
Mm-hmm.
of the final tribal, I think was a lot as I'm like seeing it close out. But I also was just like so emotional over like the Abby Elizabeth moments,
Yeah.
and like Abby talking to Elizabeth at Final Tribal just felt so much more emotional in real time than
Yeah.
maybe on screen. And again, I don't know how much of that is because I enjoy both of them and like was rooting for both of them, and
Mm-hmm.
like, it just is that moment where you're like, you both can't win.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, and so it just, yeah. And then I think at that point too, I'm just, really invested and really thinking like Abby's going to win, while
Mm-hmm.
also simultaneously being like, oh shoot, like Sam's answers are really great.
Yeah.
And like, and so yeah, it just felt very intense for me personally
Mm-hmm.
as I'm like sitting there actively crying
Sure.
behind a camera, like as they're all talking and
Yeah.
trying to keep it together because it's not about me,
Sure. Sure.
but it's like I'm having all these feelings as it's wrapping up and it's coming to a close.
Mm-hmm.
And, as the votes are being read, it's like this moment where I can see like it's just been a lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy because it seems so crazy to explain this or say this now because it's like it's just a game.
Yeah.
But I think in the moment it's like,
It's
I don't
a
know, I
yeah.
just had no idea like how the votes were going to go down. Was it going to be like 2-0 votes
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else, Sam got all of the votes,
Yeah.
and then as you're reading it and it's Sam, Abby, and then Sam,
Yep.
it's just, again, you're like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's thrilling and it's intense. Like it's the people who cooked up the Survivor format 25 years ago, like they cooked, and like yeah, it's designed to be intense, right? Like
Yeah, but I think so much of like, I feel like in Survivor nowadays, it's like, oh, we know who's going to win when
yeah.
they get to Final Tribal. Like, it's very rare that you don't know who's going to win.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what made, or at every tribal, you're
Except
like,
when Gabler wins and then it sucks when he
well,
does.
we don't talk about that one. Yeah, it's like, I think like even at tribals, it's like in Real Survivor, it's like, yeah, they kind of try to make you think like, who's it going to be? But for
Mm-hmm.
the most part, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think throughout the entire show, that's what was felt so, like throughout the time, I was like, I think this is more interesting than Real Survivor because it was going so fast. It was so
Mm-hmm.
thrilling. There were so many what the heck moments.
Yeah. And part of it was because, at least for me, I was feeling that way the most when I was there. And, because now I know what happens, obviously, in the edit. But, like,
Mm-hmm.
when I was there, I was feeling that way. And it is because you're not getting the whole story. Like,
Yeah.
you're only seeing bits and pieces. When you get to the show and you're editing things together, like, you get to craft that and
Mm-hmm.
present a narrative. But when you're out there, yeah, by nature, you don't know what's going to happen. It's like live sports, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
Yeah.
know if the guy's going to get the hit or not until it happens. And so
you're
yeah, it was
missing a ton
thrilling.
of
It was thrilling to
context.
be out there.
Yeah, you're missing a ton of context that I'm like, I'm over here rooting for these two people and I'm just thrilled that they're making it through, and I have
Yeah.
no idea what they're doing in the background, like no idea that Orange is imploding in on themselves, and
Right,
like
right.
it's just so you kind of make up your own story
Yeah.
as you're experiencing it in real life. And then I think seeing it on screen, it still is powerful. But I think, again, it's these two different experiences where the fun part of watching it back now is getting to relive it while also simultaneously watching it with people who weren't there and getting to see their reactions has been more fun for me. Whereas, like, I think specifically with this final episode, not that it fell flat, but again, I think it in comparison to real life, it's just so different.
Yeah.
Because at this point, it was just so heightened. We're running on nothing.
Yeah.
You're ready for it to over while simultaneously being like, it's
I know. Yeah.
getting over. Like,
it's been really cool. It's been a great experience, like, editing this and presenting it and for people to see it. But doing the actual weekend is still the best part, you know, like, and that's why, like, I think we said this at the very beginning, but priority 1A has to be making a really great experience that weekend for the players and for the crew. And then priority 1B is making a good show, like, because we're not making money on it and we're not winning any awards for it and it's not going on network television. And I'm somebody who, as a borderline perfectionist, you know, gets frustrated when things aren't going well from a production standpoint. And I try to always come back to that of, like, make it best for the people there first, you know? And there's ways that I wish we would have done things more in service of that, like the times when we're redoing moments in tense situations to get a better shot for camera. Like, we should have just said, like, it's fine, who cares, we get what we've got, you know? Or you know, leaving players on Last Chance Island for hours at a time without much to do would have been a...
Yeah. I don't feel like, I mean, I guess I wasn't in the edit, but, like, I don't feel like we stopped and redid a bunch of things.
We did more than you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in retrospect, there's more times than you would maybe think. Do you want to award your final Gertchie of the season?
Yeah, controversial in this household that I, sorry to say, I think everyone already knows, but I do want to give my Gertchie to Abby.
And why is that?
Not just because she's my boss. That's not why I've been rooting for her this whole time. There's no motives. You know, I've already received my meets expectations for the year. So, thank you. No, I think, again, it goes back to what I was saying. Like, in real time, I was just feeling so much emotion and was just, like, so proud and just so excited to see her and Elizabeth get so far. Abby was my original winner pick.
Yeah.
Mainly because I was convinced that Elizabeth wouldn't make it as far as she did because I thought her threat level would get too big and people would vote her out. And, like, her threat level was huge, but she did survive. So great job, Elizabeth. But ultimately, Abby was my winner pick, and I was, I don't know, just really excited to see her get this far. I think she did really well. I think, you know, you can really see in the last 2 episodes or of this 3-parter, like, it's really weighing on her. And it means a lot. And I think ultimately at the end, it was like, I know going into the game, she was like, I can't get to the end and have 0 votes.
Right.
And so I think, you know, to see, like, she pulled out 3 votes, she played a really great game. And
she got 3 votes from arguably the people who would be her, like, not her toughest, maybe her toughest critics.
Right.
You know, like, So
overall, great job, Abby. Great job, Sam, as well. I just don't want to have the same Gertchie award as Alex. But ultimately, I want to vote for Abby.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm giving mine to Sam because he won Outlast.
And this is why it's controversial, apparently, that I don't want to vote for the person. I'm voting for a person who lost. And so, therefore, my vote is dumb.
It's valid.
Is it just...
Sam not only won, but I do think he won it in this round, like we've said. Like, it's not just... he laid the groundwork, of course, but he closed here this
Mm-hmm.
round.
And I did see that, and I think I do respect it. I think in the moment I was, again, just very biased,
Mm-hmm.
still biased, and I love Sam. I think in the, as you're going in, like rooting for somebody really hard, it's hard to then not be a little disappointed.
Yeah. And people will and have said, without naming names, that like, oh, like what did Sam do? And I think first of all that's a debunked argument because you see that he did do quite a bit.
Oh, 100%.
But his leading trait was not his strategic gameplay. It was a part of his game, but it wasn't his leading trait. Like Abby's leading trait was her strategic gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sam's was his social
Yeah,
skills,
100%.
and that is a huge, maybe the biggest part of social strategy games is being liked, And again, not that the other players there weren't liked, but Sam is just effortlessly charming. He is, and it's not smarmy. He's genuinely a great guy.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we've said this before, but he's the type of person who meets you and then, like, in month one of meeting this man, he came and moved our house
mm-hmm.
without his partner who's the person who knew us.
Yeah, just a
like, he's just such
really
a
kind,
good, such a good guy.
generous, caring guy.
Great hang. Great hang.
Yeah, top tier hang.
And then the accent,
Yeah, the accent. Well, crikey, that'll do it. I don't think there's much else to say here about the show. I will, yes.
I do want to say, I think there needs to be more shout outs to Amy.
Yeah.
Amy,
Production director, but also a million other things, as everybody did that weekend. Everybody had a million things they did. But
yeah, but she's, they're keeping it on time. She's being, a planner while also being creative with the
Yep.
shots, making sure that everybody's in the right place, making sure that you're not losing your mind.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Ow.
overall, like, she was such a huge part of this being a success.
Yeah, definitely.
And, just really incredible job.
Yep.
Also, shout out to Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Not Elizabeth.
Yep.
Liz Byers. She kept me together the whole weekend.
Jen handler.
She kept us fed. We worked together. We did so many other tasks that we didn't think we were going to have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she could have left when David got voted out, but she stayed in there.
Yeah.
She ultimately found the missing SD card.
Yeah, as is credited here in the finale.
Yeah, and then there's plenty, all the rest of the crew, just people who stepped in, came, who we weren't even expecting to come.
Yep.
And just couldn't have happened without every single person that was there.
It really was such a skeleton crew. Like, we knew it was going to be a light crew, and then we had people drop out, and it was even lighter. And so, yeah, everybody pulled so much weight to get it done. Yeah, just really, really impressed and grateful for everybody who helped out, because everybody did well beyond what would be a reasonable thing to expect from somebody.
Yeah, that's like a weekend, and then literally the next day after pulling 14-hour days on your feet, pretty stressful. It's like, okay, back to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're all 30, so it's tough on our bodies.
I do also want to note that, because I failed to, that Sam was my pregame winner pick.
Oh yeah.
So did nail that. And you could, cynically look at this and say, wow, rigged. The two creators' winner picks were first and second. Thing is rigged. And you'd be fair to say that, perhaps.
It
wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah, I think looking at them on paper, we s- judged them accurately.
Yeah. I also
And we
think
also
they're too.
know we
Yeah.
know them well,
I was
so
gonna say we also know them. I think as we were going through original cast, there was like, I don't know what to say about this person because I don't really know them,
yeah.
but what they said on paper, cool. We'll see how it all turns out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm rooting for Abby because I know that she has
Hmm.
this, and this.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Well, this has been over an hour, so I'm definitely going to cut the exit interviews into a different recording. So that will close out this video, and there'll be another one that has our final fives responses that you've come to expect. Yeah, this is it. That's the end of Outlast. We are doing Outlast Season 2. The interest form is in the description, so if you've been watching along and you want to be involved, make sure to fill that out. And hopefully, if all goes well, you'll be hearing from us again in several months with lead up to Outlast Season 2. Thanks for going on this journey with us. Yeah, I don't know what else to say here.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.